You don't need to say it. I already know what you're thinking.
Oh, do you? What is it I'm thinking?
Well, you know.
Oh, I know. Oh, okay.
We're Elisa and Brian Hope, and with a lot of years as a mental health therapist,
And a lot of years as a pastor.
and even more years being married, we've got hopes for your marriage.
Here we go.
Mind reading. Could you tell that's what was going on?
That's what, yeah, mind reading. It's that superpower skill that we all seem to act like we have, and sometimes we act like we really, really want it, but we are not just woefully unskilled at it. It's just silly to think that we can even do that. We cannot read each other's mind. We might know a lot about each other. You love your spouse. You know your spouse. You probably have a good idea of what they're thinking, but you don't actually know, and you cannot read each other's mind. It reminds me when I was a kid. We used to get the Magic 8-Ball.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Kind of dates us.
Kind of dates us, but it was a cool thing. It was this 8-ball with something that floated in a window, and you'd ask it a question. Is Mom going to let me go to the movie tonight?
No.
And you'd swirl it around, and then you'd read it, and it would tell you, like, all signs point to no, or not likely, or yes. And
Shake it enough.
You shake it enough, you get what you want. But that just felt like such power, and we bring that sometimes to our spouse. Like, we own this magic device that allows us to read one another's mind, and it doesn't work. What we're actually doing is creating a one-sided narrative. Like I'm the script writer, the director, the producer, and I'm the star and the co-star in my own one-sided story. And that's what mind reading. That's what we're actually doing there.
So the question is, we can hear how silly that is.
I know.
I mean, this is a superpower that does not work, that we continue to try to use on each other. And why do we persist in doing that?
You don't have to answer. I already know. I already know what you're going to say.
Thanks. So there's 3 reasons that we persist in mind reading with our spouse. Number 1, we don't like being out of control. Just at our very basis, humans, we like to think that we're in control. Now, we know that we're not. We're not in control of most of anything. However, this unknown of not knowing what our spouse is thinking for real, not knowing how they're going to respond, makes us anxious, makes us uncomfortable. And so we just write it out for them so that we can plan accordingly. Number 2, it's a self-protective mechanism that we have. Because let's be honest, when we often assume the worst. And so we get ready for that. We are able to think about what they might say that is going to disappoint us or hurt us or not be what we had hoped for. And so we can plan ahead and prepare ourselves emotionally or even with our comeback so that we're ready and that maybe it won't hurt so bad or we won't be taken off guard. The other thing is that we just like to hear what we want to hear. And so we can just pretend that we know what they're going to say so we can do what we want to do. I'm sure that you're thinking that you want me to get that new couch off of Etsy. So since I already know that, why even discuss that?
Why would we need to talk about that?
You would just say bye.
Go for it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what I want. That's exactly what I want to hear. Yeah. And you can see the results of the mind reading attempt don't usually go well. This is not a recipe for peace and serenity and open, honest communication in your marriage. So the first thing we can do and should do is just acknowledge this is a false sense of reality. And that's the 8-ball. It's not really
real.
Magic. It's not. But we think it is, and we feel like it is, and that's a false sense of reality. And we bring that into our mind reading attempts in marriage. One of the things it does is that it shuts down all curiosity and any open dialogue. You can't learn what your spouse is thinking if you already think you know what they know. So why need to learn? There's no need for curiosity and asking open questions like that. It also shuts down your spouse hard and quickly. Because it's completely unfair to come into a conversation or a dialogue or a discussion and deny your spouse the freedom to have their voice in that. They don't get a vote on their thoughts. They don't get to speak their thoughts or opinions or feelings. I'm just going to do that for you. That's just unfair, and we feel that immediately.
It feels cruddy.
It feels cruddy. It's a major shutdown
Yeah.
for your spouse, and it creates reactivity. It creates we respond to it with defensiveness and hurt feelings, and with this belief that, well, in future situations, why even engage? I begin to distrust any other invitations to be involved, because what's the point? I'm just you already know what I'm gonna say.
And oftentimes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy too. We come in thinking there's going to be a fight, and so we already come in reactive or defensive or with a comeback that wasn't even needed.
Yeah.
And so we create a situation that we fear that would have never happened had we come in just open and curious. So what we'd like you to do instead is just, first of all, increase your awareness. This is that opportunity again for non-judgmental noticing. Brian's
NJN.
there we go.
Yeah.
So we need to start noticing when we are creating this one-sided narrative and ask ourselves, I think, some key questions. Is there something that I'm bringing to this that comes from a place of fear? Am I preparing myself and maybe not actually coping with those fears I mentioned before of disappointment or hurt? Am I bringing maybe a dialogue that has happened in another relationship, and because I've been hurt in the past or hurt somewhere else, I am coming in with that, I'm projecting that on my spouse, and he doesn't even get a chance to be himself with his own thoughts because I've already overlaid somebody else on him. Doesn't feel good.
No,
at
that's
all.
not what. No, that doesn't help at all.
No. And am I coming in with my own wants and desires so much so that I am not making space for Brian to have his own opinion and to trust that and want to hear that and have potential growth around that? Am I just overlaying my way, my will, my thoughts over Brian and not giving him space at all for this to be a two-way relationship?
Yeah, it would be like, hey, I've got something, let's talk about it. And then, nope. I got it. I got this. No, it's just rude and unkind. And us acting it out like that, I mean, is meant to be a little bit funny, but point to the reality. Like, we do that when we're trying to read each other's mind rather than coming and just asking and staying curious and staying open and assuming the best.
Yeah.
So let's put that not so magic 8-ball away.
Throw it away.
Throw it away. Don't keep shaking it up until you get what you want, because that's not how this works. We want to notice that when we try to employ a superpower that only God possesses, what we end up doing is creating chaos and confusion.
Yeah.
And letting Him be the one who knows our mind, our thoughts, and our hearts, and not doing that ourselves. We don't know.
We mess it up.
We mess it up. So we're just going to ask, so what do you think?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this issue? I'm curious how you feel about this, because I don't know.
And sometimes I'll even, I'm growing this, but even learning, like with Brian, to be able to say, this is what I'm fearing you're going to say. So I can tell him that. This is what I really want. I want you to say yes, but I'm going to try to be open to your other opinions. So I can bring that in, but it's just so helpful to name that and even work through that together.
Yeah, not only does that give me freedom to have a voice, I feel like now I can come alongside Elisa and help, and I can bring like, well, now I can really help you get what you want, or I can have a voice in that for your sake, not just not getting my own little opinion voice. I can be there for you.
For my fears, for my desires.
All of that. It's very empowering.
Yeah.
And it feels good as a husband to have the room to rise up and be there for you. Thanks for doing that. That's good.
So one of the things that struck me as we were going through this is, as Brian mentioned, that not only do we have a God that is all-knowing, He knows our minds, but we actually have a God that asks questions and invites. I see that all through Scripture. I see Jesus inviting people in, asking them really good questions. And the reason is that He doesn't want it to just be a one-sided relationship. He wants to actually be in a relationship that engages. So if we've got an all-knowing God, a mind-reading God that still steps back and leaves room for us to be us and invites us into those kinds of open dialogues, how much more can we then give that gift to our spouse?
Good gift. I like it. Yeah. All right, so no more mind reading.
No.
It doesn't work. It's not fun.
Not at all.
It's way more enjoyable to learn and stay curious with your spouse and ask those questions and be ready. You're going to learn a lot, and it's going to be super enjoyable.
Yeah. Those are our hopes for your marriage. We hope you have a great day.
See you next time.